Greetings, my beautiful cosmic family members and friends. This one again is being brought to you by special request. I wanted to do this video in a way that I have yet to see put together, meaning the connection between mind and dimensions. I have spoken about mind in videos before, and I have lightly touched on dimensions, but I've never brought it together in the way that I'm about to do in this video. Now, I need you guys to please watch and listen carefully. So let's start this one off by getting into the Webster's definition of dimensions. And it reads, a measurable extent of some kind, such as length, depth, or height. The final dimensions of the pond were 14 feet by 8 feet. Synonyms: size, measurements, proportions, extent, length, width, depth, area, volume, capacity, footage, and acreage. Now, let me give you my definition of dimensions. Compartmentalized planes of thought projections interfacing with energy particles, light, gases, and or matter to create, perceive, and experience with the will of the mind, a sum total of a magnetic and binary field, form, or plane. But typically when we hear people talk about dimensions, we give a numerical association to them, such as the first, second, third, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, and so on and so forth. And we do this from a physical perspective because the human brain decodes the world in and around us in a very linear and super compartmentalized way. So it is a good framework and a good blueprint to follow to drive home the point about dimensions from our current perspective, but I'm not going to be relying on this particular framework or model in this installment, and you guys will see why. So let's just move on now to mind. All right, according to Webster's dictionary, the mind is the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. Now, this definition pretty much supports one of my revelations that I had shared years ago. We really are one massive mind, compartmentalized, experiencing infinite realities from infinite perspectives simultaneously, to create with the will of the mind and experience the great self within the ultimate self, the Almighty God or I Am Presence, is the greatest dimensional pathway towards attaining wisdom, true awareness of ourselves, as well as the expansion of mind and soul. Now, the mind, the ultimate mind, cannot be measured. This is the source, the starting point. The ultimate mind is everywhere, but nowhere at the same time. Although we are a reflection, a fragment of that collective mind. We're like a micro within a macro. And within our universe, there are micros within our macro, and it goes on and on and on. If we are a being of light, a soul, a spirit, who wanted to experience what it was like to be in matter, what would need to happen? We would need to project an aspect of mind, a particle, which is about the size, a little bigger than the ball on the ballpoint pen. We project that in the crown of the vessel or avatar that we are incarnating in as a baby, and one that is about the same size through the umbilical cord. And this is the part that goes into the core. So you have within this dual reality a physical vessel that is giving us an opportunity to experience from a higher human mind perspective and a lower human mind perspective. Now, mind you, pun intended, from the core perspective, meaning where our gut flow, our emotional body, our reproductive organs are, and from the brain higher mind perspective, where the pineal gland is, we have access to corresponding dimensions within those respective frameworks. Both of these organs are multidimensional in their structure alone and is naturally capable of interfacing with and decoding electrical signals via our subtle bodies, which are vibrating in the same space but on other dimensional planes, just as they do with the physical. Unfortunately, the majority of us are still unconscious of this innate connection and multidimensional capability, and the reasons for this are far too many to go into right now. Furthermore, our amnesia, disconnection, and even denial of our mind and multidimensional potential and capabilities give cause as to why those of us who haven't completely lost all connections, but honestly and openly speak about them or on them, are often shunned and demonized by those who are either under a spell, hypnosis, in fear blocked, by the way, or saturated in mind with dog. The connection between body, mind, and multidimensional selves, or self, is the reason some of us can see, sense, and even know things beyond what we've been programmed to access, which is usually pertaining or restricted to 5 senses. Extrasensory perception is simply decoding and experiencing a different dimension by way of a corresponding non-matter form or body. We feel from the core. Again, this is where gut flow, our emotional body, where intuition is. When our mind is clear in this area, we can perceive and pick up other dimensional realms around us. Same thing from a brain perspective. This is why some of us can see things that others may not. These are beings who have a clear brain and pineal gland, where their mind particle is able to see and perceive and decode beyond physicality. Now, when we are closed off or clogged up or backed up, or when we are behaving in a low vibratory nature and low vibratory way, this affects what dimension from which plane we have access to versus what we don't have access to. Although we are here in a physical body, we have layers to us. When we look at a person, we can see that sum total of the person, but just looking at them, we cannot see their nervous system. We cannot see their skeletal structure. We cannot see their tissues. We cannot see their brain, their intestines. However, with the right tool, of course, you can cut a body open and gain access to all of those dimensional forms and layers. Believe it or not, if we had a fully activated pineal gland, did you know that we could literally look into another person's body? Not only would peering into a physical form in this regard be possible, but peering into any dimensional form or structure at will would be possible. In essence, this would be X-ray vision, the ability to willfully bend light by sight. The body is multidimensional. So yes, we can map and measure the matter of the body, but those layers of the body that goes beyond visible sight, meaning the emotional body, the astral body, the mental body, the ethereal body, the light body, the soul body, the spirit body, is all in the same space but vibrating on a different dimension. Now, how are dimensions created? What is the source of the creation of dimensions? Well, it is the mind and consciousness. What is consciousness? H2O is consciousness. Organic light is consciousness. Gases is consciousness. We seem to be floating, and all these planets seem to be floating in infinity. But the truth of the matter is, we're actually under a large body of water. Water has different dimensions to it. The different dimensions will be the equivalent of different densities. If we go to a beach and we see a blue lake in front of us, that body of water is on another dimension. The water that we are under on this earth, H2O, because we need it to breathe in, we're underwater as well. It may not seem that way because you're born in it and you're breathing it from day one. It's just a different dimension from, or different density from the water that we see when we run the kitchen faucet or go to a beach or lake or take a shower. The entire universe is conscious, but everything in the universe is not consciously aware of self. If we were to tilt our head at the right angle and focus our eyes just right under the right lighting, we could literally see grid lines all around us. The grid lines would be the blueprint, the foundation, the DNA for the building of dimensional planes. I can see them with my naked eye. If I turn my head and eye a certain way, and it looks very similar to this right here, except it's more like light. Instead of these harsh lines and these dark circles, it's more like a faint light, and there are these energy spheres that are connected across each crossing grid line. These grid lines is the blueprint and foundation for every dimension, because the mind by nature is compartmentalized and has a grid to it. So when we will forth the need or the desire to experience or to create or co-create a reality, the foundation starts with these multi-dimensional grid lines. A grid line can be in many different forms and shapes. Some people have even talked about seeing geometric patterns in the collective grid or in another dimensional reality. There are higher beings who use grid lines as such for their respective reality, but it all starts from mind and consciousness with a blueprint that is pushed out into the universe, and we collectively build upon that by our will, by our intent, by our desires, through cause and effect, through magnetic attraction, so on and so forth. Since technology pretty much mimics or imitates the nature of reality and consciousness and the world that we see around us, to drive home the point of how our greater awareness can shift and perceive and experience from a very rigid and restricted perspective versus a greater broad reality, I want to use the video camera. All right, the camera mimics the eye lens and aspects of the brain and mind. And of course, we have the vintage cameras and recorders, and those are very limited in their function. There wasn't color then, so of course, there were extreme limitations with the vintage camera. That would be more along the lines of the consciousness of those who we would call or perceive as primitive. And then we have the standard and moderate recorder and camera. These would be the beings who would dwell somewhere in the range that we're in. And then, of course, you have digital and beyond. These would be the light beings who are vibrating very fast and able to decode a far broader span of light spectrum. And like the brain and mind, images are captured in a series of frames based on their respective light spectrum. So a camera captures a series of still frames per second or millisecond, depending on our level of consciousness and level of awareness. And our consciousness shifts through these frames, giving us the perception of movement from an objective point of view. However, from an objective point of view, in the frame, we are experiencing from a subjective point of view. So let's just take this square here, this box. This symbolizes a frame within 3D. Let's just say that You are consciousness, the greater awareness of self, looking at the internet through the computer. Like the internet, you have all of these dimensions within dimensions. Let's just say all of these servers all around the world represent a collective thought. And let's just say all of the videos, literature, everything you can find on the internet within each frame or school of thought, meaning the server. Now let's just say that you wanted to go back and look at a timeline. And let's use this video as an example. The red bar line represents a year. And just as if we were looking from our reality, from a subjective point of view, you will see bar lines, energy streams, waveforms, binary codes. But once you shift your focus all the way in, you will be able to see the images, the formation of what that particular bandwidth or light stream, waveform, series of events. And we can move anywhere within this energy stream and go to any frame on this timeline and view a series of events. Again, each frame within this bar line represents a dimension holding a series of events. You, from a subjective conscious point of view, is opting and using the will of mind to zoom in and to observe. Now imagine that on an internet national level, we can go to any server at any given moment with the will to do so and zoom into any server or any dimensional timeline that has been set in place within the infinite bandwidth on the internet. In essence, we are doing the same thing, but we are doing it from a 3D perspective. And when we shift out of this dimension, we will be able to zoom in, zoom out, and go anywhere within the collective consciousness at will by simply shifting our focus and attention. And again, keep in mind that all of these servers, with all of this content, all of this information, all of these video streams that encompasses a collection of different ideas, series of events, images, and so on and so forth, came to be by what? The projection of the will of mind. It is simply recorded in an artificial device that mimics the actual nature of reality. Now, you guys may be questioning, how in the world is it possible for us to be in these different timelines that are going upside down and right side up and so on and so forth? Well, again, from the perspective of dimensions, when we look at an insect walking across the floor, that insect is on a different frequency and different vibration. Although it is in matter, it is still in a different dimension, operating on a different frequency than us. So from my perspective, we can watch a roach walk across the floor, climb up the wall, walk upside down. But if you were a being who was more advanced and had a vantage point that you don't, and looked at us, you will see balls and balls of energy and light streams. Yes, you will see waveforms, but with the right focus, from their perspective, you will see us appearing to be walking upside down and upside up. Because again, when you shift your perspective within a dimensional layer of fabric, you get to see things totally different from what it would be if you were actually projecting your mind in it and experiencing it from a subjective point of view rather than an objective point of view. Do you guys think from the perspective of an insect that it is walking upside down and upside up? From the perspective of that insect, it's just walking forward. It's not aware that that is what it's doing. But this is what we're doing as well. We're just not consciously aware of it because we believe everything to be fixed and linear in one frame in front of the other, straight out, rather than bending and folding and so on and so forth. Death is not real in the way that we perceive it. When the physical body drops, you simply lose your ability to interface and interact with matter. Your consciousness simply shifts to another dimension. And from there, what happens and where you go is all a matter of what your mind and what your will is, what your program is, or how strong your mind is, or how weak. It all depends on each individual. We are individually and collectively creating our reality. Everyone and everything is connected. We are mind within mind within mind. Everything we do affects the other, whether we are aware of it or not. And everything we do to the other, we do to ourselves. What I'm ultimately saying, guys, is that there are infinite, endless dimensions. Not giving you guys enough to build upon, even though I made most of the focus from a physical matter perspective. But again, because we are multi-dimensional, we can add this same formula, same concept, same idea to the astral realm, the mental realm, the ethereal realm. All right, that's it. I hope you guys get it. You may want to rewind this and watch it again. And please, by all means, share this video as well as other videos in forms that you guys know that the people will enjoy or appreciate. And don't forget to like, because the like helps to promote the content.